Right! Bears fans, it's time for another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast, Bears Banter, powered by Second City Gridiron. Bill Zimmerman with you, and I'm just coming in with a big apology today, Bears fans, a huge apology, because I, the flag bearer for Caleb Williams for over a year now, week 5 of 2023, I said Caleb Williams needs to happen, and half of you said go to hell. But I said it needed to happen. You didn't want to hear it then. You do want to hear it now, and I'm apologizing because I underestimated this man. I didn't even know what was possible with this man. I told you last week the regression has to come. How could he do any better? 4 touchdowns. 4 freaking touchdowns. Should have had 5 if DJ Moore had, 6 more centimeters. Could have had 5 touchdowns. Would have been an all-time international record. His man's in his 6th NFL game. He was being called a bust on ESPN after 2 weeks. 6 NFL games. There's so much to talk about here. We've got a guest coming up, Greg Bragg, CHGO, the man, the myth, the legend, the bricklayer to broadcaster. He's going to be by. We're going to have some fun with Greg. Greg and I have been talking off air for a couple years now. So we're going to have Greg on because we're going to have some fun here as the Bears enter the bye week at 4-2. And again, I feel like my persona has died because I have been covering this team for 11 years now. This is year 11. I'm sure a lot of you didn't know me back in 2014 when I was writing for Ranch Sports. I don't even think that website exists anymore. And then on to Fansided and eventually here SB Nation and Windy City Gridiron and joining the podcast channel with Lester and Jeff Berkus and everyone at Second City Gridiron and seeing that grow. And except for the blip in 2018, which was fun, but there was still a bit of a limitation. And I was excited. I'm not saying I now look back on it and I wasn't excited. I thought Matt Nagy was the guy. I was hopeful Mitch Trubisky could be the guy. And Ryan Pace, I felt, was putting together a team. And then I found out that Ryan Pace didn't know how to maintain a top-notch roster. Matt Nagy didn't know how to utilize his quarterback the best way. And Mitch Trubisky certainly wasn't the guy. Mitch Trubisky was kind of just moved into the best way you could move an offense forward with him, which was largely a game manager kind of a thing. So other than that blip in 2018, because of my Bears fandom and because, and at least I have the 80s, but, I was born in 77. So 1990, early 90s, that's where you're a kid, you love football, they run, they throw, but you're not sitting there breaking down the 46 defense and understanding the intricacies of Buddy Ryan's defense. But you are, as you start getting into your teen years and you're playing football yourself and you truly start understanding the game. And that's when the Bears hit the crapper. The 90s, to me, I still think is the worst decade in Bears history because the woeful was 1968 or 69 season, that 1-13 season was in the 60s when they won a championship. And I'm not cheating. I'm not going like 1966 to 1976 or something. I'm talking about a straight era, a straight decade. I think the 90s is the worst decade in Bears history. And I understand they had like an 11-5 there early on in the 90s still with Ditka, and they even won a playoff game, but there was no hope. There was no direction. That was Mike McCaskey not hiring a general manager and making this team a woeful, pathetic mess. Dave Wannstedt was okay. Dick Duran at the end of that. The Cade McNown debacle falls into 1999. The Rick Meyer debacle falls. The Wannstedt, where they had the number 1 pick with like 3 games to go or 4 games to go. Then I think they won 3 out of their last 4 and ended up with Curtis Enos instead of Peyton Manning. Like that all happened in the 90s. And that's where I really became who I am as a Bears fan and someone who understands football. So Bears suckiness is what I have known. And then, yes, the Lovey years, they were nice. They were fine. There was a Super Bowl appearance. It was fun. But again, Rex Grossman, Kyle Orton, it was never going to work. I didn't like trading all the draft picks for Jay Cutler. Teams don't give away quarterbacks. I don't care if there's coaching change or whatever. You don't give away quarterbacks if you think the quarterback is the guy. But the Broncos did because they knew Jay Cutler wasn't the guy. And did the Bears fail Jay Cutler? Of course they did. But was Jay Cutler ever going to be an elite quarterback here? No, because Jay Cutler didn't have the chops to be an elite quarterback. He wasn't a leader. He didn't check all the boxes that you needed to. He was a gunslinger like Brett Favre, but didn't have the skill set of Brett Favre. He was a notch below. So this is who I've been. And I've been talking about this for too long because I want to talk about Caleb Williams. But this is who I've been as a Bears fan. And other than that blip in 2018, since I've been doing this podcast and doing this Bears coverage, this team has been terrible. So as I sit there and seethe, thinking about why do I root for this team year after year after year, while they continue to disappoint me year after year after year, we get to the point where the stars align and Ryan Poles makes, because the way Caleb Williams is going, and sorry, Herschel Walker, go do your stupid politics in Georgia. Nobody likes you. Other than the Herschel Walker trade, this is number 2, and it might become number 1. It might become number 1, the greatest trade in NFL history, because you don't get franchise quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks. You don't get that in a trade like this. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. If you have the number 1 pick and a guy like Caleb Williams is available, you keep that pick. But David Tepper is an idiot. He wanted to make the splash then. He took the wrong guy. I still think Frank Reich wanted C.J. Stroud, and David Tepper told him to shove it because of an IQ test, basically, that C.J. Stroud didn't do well on. Oops. But the Carolina Panthers, who are now doomed for potentially eternity, but at least the next 5-6 years, this has all had these stars align for the Chicago Bears to get a franchise quarterback, something they have not had since Sid Luckman. Jim McMahon would have been that franchise quarterback, but he couldn't stay healthy. And because he couldn't stay healthy, the Bears were a one-year wonder in the 1980s. If Jim McMahon played 14 to 16 games a year, the Bears win the championship in 86. And then who knows what happens after that? Wilbur Marshall probably doesn't want to leave. Things change. So we can't change history. This is who the Chicago Bears have been for the last 75 years. But enter Caleb Williams, where everything has changed, guys. Everything has changed. And you want to sit there and say, it's too early, it's only 3 games. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do something right now. And if you're listening on the podcast, go over to the Second City Gridiron YouTube page. We're about 8 minutes into this podcast, and just jump ahead to the 8-minute mark. Because right now, even though it makes no sense, I'm taking a victory lap. See ya! Victory! Woo! That's right, baby. Victory lap, because the Bears have Caleb Williams. The vision I had for what the Bears could be, what Caleb Williams could bring to this city, all the false narratives that people tried to push down, the keep Justin Fields and trade for the Hulk, the mess of everything that was. I'm out of breath now. I'm too fat to be doing these victory laps. But it's all coming together. And I don't care if it's only been 3 games. And you can piss all over my mentions in Twitter and say it's the Panthers and it's the Jaguars and it's all these bad football teams. You go right ahead, because I know what I'm seeing. It doesn't matter who the other team is. And yeah, when they play a really good defense, is it going to be harder on Caleb Williams? Of course it is. I'm still trying to breathe here, still recovering from that victory lap. Of course it's going to be harder. But if you're watching the football game and you know what you're watching, you're seeing a quarterback who has control of an offense. You're seeing a quarterback making adjustments at the line of scrimmage. You're seeing a quarterback that has Shane Waldron calling a running play on the goal line, and Caleb Williams checks to a touchdown pass. Jay Cutler couldn't even check out of everything. He had limitations in what he was allowed to do in the offense. James Daniels couldn't play center because Mitch Trubisky couldn't handle the protection calls, and James Daniels was too young, so he had to play guard. Okay, this is where we've been. Justin Fields can't throw with anticipation. All of this has changed. The Bears have a quarterback who is throwing Keenan Allen open for a touchdown. The Bears have a quarterback who's checking out of plays and making the right decision. whether it was the we've got fire and he checks out to Rome Odunze. Sorry, I said Colt Kmet last week. I've been corrected by many people. The check out to Rome Odunze, the touchdown pass after he checks out of the run, because they had the exact look they were looking for. Caleb Williams understands the game of football. He understands the game of football at another level. My hand is way over my head. He understands the game of football more than Justin Fields and more than Mitch Trubisky. And I'm not trying, don't sit here and take this as a criticism of Justin Fields or Mitch Trubisky. I'm not attacking those guys. Those guys were quarterbacks. They were selected. It didn't work out to the success level that the Bears wanted or Bears fans wanted. And that's why when I saw last year with Justin Fields, and again, I'm going to talk about this just for a second, there was a limitation to that passing game. And you wanted to see it, right? The first year, it was a mess. He didn't get the right reps. We couldn't understand exactly what Justin Fields couldn't do because of the mess that Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace created. Then Ryan Poles comes in and literally rips everything down around him. And, I don't need to go through all this, but Justin Fields had to do it all on his own. So he started running for 120 yards a game. So we enter year 3. In year 3, everything was in place. Luke Getsy's an okay offensive coordinator. He's not great, but he's good enough. The Bears' offensive line was good enough. DJ Moore, excellent. Darnell Mooney is a number 2, very good. Colt Kmet, piece. Decent running backs. There was enough there for Justin Fields to succeed. And what we saw was Justin Fields' ceiling. It was year 3. He had been there enough. Yes, there were issues in his development, but there was a ceiling. And what we're seeing in Pittsburgh with Justin Fields, forget him getting benched for Russell Wilson. Just put that aside. There was a ceiling of Justin Fields. Justin Fields was who he was last year with the Bears. And the ceiling was that he reduces sacks and he reduces interceptions. And he has done that in Pittsburgh. But if you have watched him in Pittsburgh, he's far less of an explosive player. He doesn't take the same chances down the field. He doesn't take off running as much as he used to. And I think that's because Pittsburgh sat him down and said, your style of play, while electric, doesn't quite work. We need you to dial it back. We need you to throw the ball away a little bit more. We need you to check down quicker and get the ball out into the flat and the short routes quicker. And Justin Fields has done that. And what that does is gives you an offense that scores 17 points a game. And that's not going to win in the NFL. And that's who Justin Fields was last year. And at that point, I saw the ceiling. And there were others. I'm not saying I was alone on this island. There were others that saw the field ceiling. And that's why when the Bears got off to the terrible start and the Carolina Panthers got off to the terrible start, and obviously the Bears recovered and went 7-10. But at that point, it was clear that the Bears were going to have a top 3 pick. And there was a chance that they were going to have the number 1 pick. And that's at that point where I said that Caleb Williams needed to be the Chicago Bears quarterback. That was right. Now, again, Drake may be a guy. Jaden Daniels certainly off to a great start. If the Bears didn't get that number 1 pick, I'm not saying things would have failed here in Chicago. But Caleb Williams is different. And I don't care if Jaden Daniels has better statistics now. Jaden Daniels isn't running the offense that Caleb Williams is running. Shane Waldron just shook the keys and just tossed them over to Caleb Williams on September 1st and said, all right, kid, let's see what you can do. And Caleb Williams had never driven stick, right? It was a stick shift at week 1. He had never driven with a clutch before. And he dropped that transmission, and it was rough. And then in week 2, he didn't drop the transmission, but those gears were grinding, right? He didn't quite know. In week 3, he was finally able to drive. He was getting into first gear and into second gear. Then he'd get to that red light and he dropped, he'd kill the engine. He didn't shift out of neutral right? I don't know if anyone understands what I'm talking about because you're all probably too young to understand driving a stick shift. But anyways, then in week 4, week 5, week 6, he figured it out. He's going into 5th gear. He's going 110 miles per hour down the Dan Ryan Expressway because he knows how to drive a stick shift. That's what we saw here with Caleb Williams. We saw rapid growth, rapid development. And last week I said, he's got to regress a little. He can't do it. He can't keep getting better. And he did. His EPA per play went up again. 4 touchdown passes, almost 5. Woeful, awful interception. And this was my favorite part of the London game. A lot of people talk about the Keenan Allen play and how he threw Keenan open. He put it exactly where he was. Some people immediately I saw on Twitter, well, he threw it behind him. No, he threw it exactly where it needed to be. Keenan knew that. Keenan knew where the ball needed to be. He's a professional receiver. And it was perfect. It was perfect play. And I understand why everyone loved that. But this is what I love the most. about this game in London. He throws a terrible interception. He had to, Caleb even said he had to push the ball past the pylon. It was like, 10, 15 yards. I don't know what happened there. All right. Caleb threw a bad ball. It happens. Interception. Now, the Bears get the ball back with 3 minutes to go on their own 15-yard line. Now, there's two things here. One, if it was Justin Fields or Mitch Trubisky, the Bears would have tried to score there. I'm not saying they would have taken a knee. The Bears would have tried to score there, but the Bears would have gone for 3 points. There would have been a lot more running, a lot more short passes. They would have tried to get the ball up to about the 35-yard line with no time left and kick a field goal. That would have been the goal. You all know that's true. Number two, we don't know if Mitch Trubisky or Justin Fields would have shaken off that interception like they needed to. You want to sit there and say, oh, they would have? Okay, fine, maybe. But it wouldn't have mattered anyway because the offense would have had some handcuffs on it. So two things here. One, the full trust that this team had in Caleb Williams to do that. That shows you how much more of a different level he's on. And number two, how well Caleb Williams shook off that interception, water off a duck's back. It didn't bother him one iota. And he marches them down 85 yards and scores a touchdown with just a few seconds remaining on the clock. The perfect drive to end the half. Caleb Williams, a rookie in his sixth game, did that off of a terrible interception that a lot of young quarterbacks would not have shaken off like he did. And this is what we're looking at with Caleb Williams. This is a different level. The bye comes at a great time. Let's see if the Bears get a little healthier. And let's see what happens here with a big game coming up against the Washington Commanders. Flex to the 425 CBS game. I know a lot of people are excited about that. I'm not looking forward to hearing Tony Romo try and wax poetic about Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. But I'll tell you this. This is the Rookie of the Year matchup. Assuming both these teams probably finish 10-7-ish, and both these quarterbacks continue to play well, the winner of this game is probably going to win Rookie of the Year. And I think the Bears are going to win. And we'll get into that here at the end of the podcast. Well, actually, we won't get into it because we got a bye week. We've got another podcast next week. I'm not doing just one podcast with the bye. I'm still giving you two podcasts. We got another great guest next week. And we'll talk about it then. So we're not going to talk about the Washington game now, but I will talk about it and say, I do think they're going to win that game. I'm feeling good about that game because of Caleb Williams' growth. I mean, I put out some stats at Bill T. Zimmerman on Twitter/X. Do you realize that in the last 3 weeks, Caleb Williams, QBR, if you like QBR, Caleb Williams, number 5 quarterback in the league. Number 5 the last 3 weeks. If you want to look at a different one, how about EPA per play CPOE composite? You like advanced analytics. Caleb Williams a little better than 5, a little better than 4, a little better than 3, a little better than 2. That's right. The last 3 weeks on the advanced analytic that every football nerd loves the most, Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in the NFL. Number 1. And if you put in the Colts game and give him a 4-week sample, he's number 4, I believe. Maybe number 5. He's that high up, guys. All you got to do is take out those first 2 games where he was getting his feet wet and trying to adjust to the speed of the NFL. This is where we're at with Caleb Williams. It's next level. And look, there's 52 other guys on this team that I probably should be talking about, but I just can't. I can't sit here and break down Cole Kmet. I love what Cole Kmet did. That was awesome. He had a great game. Can we talk about Shane Waldron and the phenomenal play that gave Cole Kmet his first touchdown? I mean, Cole Kmet trucked a guy to get in the end zone. Good job, Cole. We can't even say good job, Caleb. Caleb executed the play well. Fake left, fake right. Cole Kmet wide open. No one around. Shane Waldron, the panic after 2 weeks while he was trying to get all his puzzle pieces to fit. Calm down, everybody. Calm down. Shane Waldron knows what he's doing. Caleb Williams, more importantly, knows what he's doing. The offense is settling in. They're all starting to understand their roles. And when you have a quarterback who is a leader like this, I know DJ Moore had some fun with it and said he's too bossy. He's a leader. And not only that, he's confident enough in his 4th, 5th, 6th NFL game to go to a veteran of 5-6 years and say, no, I need you to do that. I need you to zig, and you've been zagging. That's impressive. That's not a Mitch Trubisky, Jay Cutler, Rex Grossman, Eric. That's not anything. That's new to the Chicago Bears. And that's what Caleb Williams is. And we cannot overstate how much different this is and how much better this is. And you know, talking to people around Caleb Williams, I've still been texting people who know him well. We're talking about, like, he's a sponge. He's special. He's incredible. You know, people didn't even know how quickly this growth curve was going to be. But this guy lives and breathes football. And Caleb Williams' goal, I mean, we all heard Caleb Williams' goal, right? To be the number 1 pick in the draft. That's what his goal was leading up to the NFL draft and what he had been aiming for. But his goals don't end there. And right now, with what this guy has in terms of motivation, with what this guy has in terms of drive and what he wants to accomplish, he's got Tom Brady in his sights. And look, winning 8 Super Bowls isn't going to, Caleb Williams can't do that on his own. He needs this organization to be a well-run organization, which it has not been in a very long time. And can Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles change that? Maybe, because it's now being run like a professional football team. Is it a great organization? We don't know that yet. It's too early. But it was been a mom and pop shop for decades, and now it's being run like a professional billion-dollar organization that it is. And that is thanks to Kevin Warren, who we all like to make fun of. I don't, but a lot of people like to make fun of Kevin Warren. But I think he is the perfect team president for this. And I hope Ryan Poles, he's made mistakes. Free agency's not great. We can go over those things. But Ryan Poles looks like he is a professional general manager. And if those two people are in place for the next 10, 15, 20 years, there's no reason that this organization can't become the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what you need to win. And Caleb Williams' drive right now is to become the greatest quarterback of all time. So we sit there and say, the Bears may have their quarterback for the decade plus. Well, Caleb Williams wants to play 20 years. So if I'm collecting Social Security and Caleb Williams is still the Bears quarterback, God bless us all. God bless us, everyone. Like, how great is this? And I am going, before we get to Greg Braggs here, I'm going to leave you with this. For the youngins, I want you to go, it's probably on Disney Plus. Go find the movie Cool Runnings, all right? And for the rest of you, if you're older like me, you've seen the movie. It's a great little sports movie, fun little feel-good movie. It's about Jamaica's Olympic bobsled team that they had in Calgary in 1992 or 88, whatever it is. Movie came out in like 91, 92. Stars John Candy. Great little flick. Go check it out. So, in that movie, the Jamaican team comes up with a little song, a little bonding song. And it goes, you know, some people say you can't believe Jamaica, we've got a bobsled team. And it rolls right off the tongue. And with that in mind, it is time, I believe for the first time ever, for me to sing on my podcast. So make sure you tape the windows. I don't want them to shatter. Make sure the cat's in the other room so they don't start screeching. The dogs might start howling. Who knows what's going to happen? Because right now, people, right now, it is a new era in Chicago. Because, you know, some people say it's out of whack. Chicago, we've got a quarterback. Greg Braggs in a minute. Bill Zimmerman, Bears Banter. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back into the podcast. We have a first-time appearance on this podcast, which we always love. He is a former bricklayer and now a staple in the Chicago Bears media community. He is Greg Braggs Jr. from CHGO Bears, and he joins me now. Greg, Bill Zimmerman, how you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and congratulations to you as well on the big job here at 670 The Score. That's great. Mitch is a smart man for bringing you on. You're also one of the best, in the Bears, the mean streets of Bears Twitter and Bears social media. It's always good to have a beacon of hope like yourself. So well deserved job for you.
Appreciate that. And yeah, for those who don't know, I'm working Odyssey Sports, cross national platform, gambling platform. We got a lot of things going on. Mitch Rosen brought me aboard. I'm excited to be aboard. But let me talk to you first, because all right, I got to ask you first. I've got a walkway. It's a brick walkway, and my stoop is starting to sink on the left, and I've got like a 2-inch gap here. Can I fix this on my own, or do I need to call in a professional? And how many thousands of dollars is this going to cost me?
Yeah, it's always so funny with bricklayers because you either get the request of someone tuck pointing a chimney on a roof that no one can get to, or they need their patio fixed, which isn't. It is under the bricklaying jurisdiction, but it's also more of a landscaping jurisdiction as well. That's like where the expertise has shifted. But more times than not, you probably got to rip it all out and redo it. And I actually had somebody else in the Bears beat. Dion Miller was actually reaching out to me asking, just rip it all out and put some concrete in. You'll never have to worry about it again. But that's probably sacrilegious for a bricklayer to say.
Man wearing many hats. All right. Well, let me ask you first about London and the experience there before we get into the actual game. I've been to London. I actually got to spend a semester in London a long, long time ago. Before Y2K was a thing, I was in London. But wow. What was the experience like for there covering the Bears and meeting fans, international fans? What was that whole thing like for you?
Well, honestly, I mean, the entire week was just amazing, and watching the Bears fans take over the city yet again, like they did in 2019. The game itself was euphoric. I mean, it's just one of those things where, if you go to any game as a Bears fan, you want to see your team win, and I can imagine what it's like for Bears fans that travel to Chicago from all the way across the United States or sometimes from the other side of the world. They want to see a Bears win, right? And so that was, for me, I haven't been to a game in a few years with what we do here at CHGO Sports. We're in studio, so I don't have, the opportunity anymore to be in the stands. And anybody that's ever followed my coverage knows how much I enjoy being the fan of the stands. So knowing that this was going to be my first game in essentially 3 years, traveling all the way over to London to see this game, wanting them just to win. I don't care how they win. I just want them to win. But then to see them win the way they did, watching Bears fans take over Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, watching Caleb Williams really start to come into his own and just make some unbelievable dynamic throws time and again. I've heard this from more than a few fans watching the game and fans that were there. It was emotional because we wait so long for our teams here in Chicago to be good, specifically our Chicago Bears. And for a moment, nothing's guaranteed. Tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. This team still has a long way to go to reach their ultimate goals. But to be able to watch this team play the way they did on an international stage like that, it's all. I mean, we are simple creatures, Bears fans, and we're not asking for much. We're just asking for a team that we can have fun watching on a Sunday, and we got it against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, no, it was a great game, and what's been happening here the last few weeks is really exciting, and we're gonna dive into all of it. So let's just dive into Caleb Williams first here, and there's plenty to get to with this team, and I just did a 25-minute monologue, and I mentioned I think Cole Kmet and Shane Waldron for about 45 seconds, and the rest was about Caleb because that's where I am. So I will ask you on a scale of 1 to full pants tent, where are you right now on your Caleb Williams love?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's full pants tent. I mean, come on now. He is exactly what he was billed as. And, what we saw at training camp, what we saw on Hard Knocks, what we saw in the preseason, all of that is showing now here in the regular season. And we all might have got knocked back a step week 1 and week 2, seeing just how ugly it was. And now you're starting to see everything come together. You're hearing some of the things that Shane Waldron was working through those first couple of weeks, whether it was, those first 15 scripted plays or personnel decisions. Then they have the leadership team meeting. Regardless of all that, I think everybody can accept, I think most Bears fans can accept a grace period of trying to figure things out, even if some of those decisions were head scratchers. Now that we're 6 weeks in and you're seeing all the things that we thought we knew about this team in the summer, and not always do those things come to fruition in the season, to see those things now right in front of your face, in real games that mean something for a playoff run. It's full pants tent mode. And I don't know how any Bears fan can be. We're 6 games into his rookie year. He's starting to set records already that no Bears quarterback, no Bears
He
rookie.
might have the rookie top passing touchdown record against Washington. Like it's unreal.
I mean, he tied it before the bye week, right? I mean, that's just incredible. And those things are silly because we understand the bar of these records are so low. But it also puts into perspective the next level of expectations that we're in uncharted territories right now.
We really are
as a team and as fans watching this team. So just embrace it. Of course, this is a long journey. We got a long way to go. They still have to figure some things out if they want to make the playoffs this year. But the bigger picture is, man, this team's got a quarterback, and this team is not going anywhere for years to come.
And that's where I am with Caleb Williams. And we're going to talk about the competition level and everything, because that seems to be what's holding people back. Oh, well, it's against Carolina and Jacksonville and they stink and all that, which I understand competition level. But where it's different for me, and I bring up these other two quarterbacks, and I keep saying this, it's for comparison. It is not to try and rip Mitch. It's not to try and rip Justin. They had their chances here. It didn't work out. We can go into the reasons why. And the Bears didn't do either of them any favors. And we know that, but regardless, whatever the reasons you want to say as a fan, it didn't work out. But what Caleb is doing, especially pre-snap, these are things I didn't even see Jay Cutler do as often as he's doing it. And Jay Cutler was a professional quarterback. Whether he was good enough or not, we don't need to get into that, but he was a professional quarterback. No one's going to doubt that about Jay Cutler. His activity pre-snap, readjusting players, calling check, like the Keenan Allen play was a check, right? It was a run that he checked into a pass because he had the right look. The week before against Carolina, the we got effing fire from Coleman Shelton, the quick out to Roma Dunze. His grasp of the game, like we can sit there and be like, hey, Mitch made some nice throws. He got the ball to the open guys. We see Justin Fields' explosiveness, the pretty deep ball. But what we never saw was a grasp of the offense, Greg, like this, and not just pre-snap where he's doing the right things, but like head on a swivel, his pocket awareness, glancing behind him to see where the tackles have the edges so he knows if he can sidestep and where he can move in the pocket. And even, Kurt Warner on the broadcast, showing like he looks right, right, center, left, back to center. It's his fourth read when he goes back and makes the completion. These are the things we haven't seen. So when we talk about, well, it's only Carolina, it's only Jacksonville, are things going to get harder against tougher defenses? Of course. But because of what he's doing in terms of executing the offense at a level we haven't seen in Chicago, I have a lot more confidence that this is going to continue to look like this and in some ways get even better.
Yeah, I have no doubt. And to your point about the competition, at the end of the day, I think we know what this defense is going to do week to week against good competition or bad competition. They showed that against Houston, where the Bears offense wasn't doing them any favors, and they kept the Bears offense in that game all the way until the final drive. So you can rely on knowing what your defense is going to do for you. But in terms of the offense, when you talk about competition, this is why I said against the Colts going into that week, they were like, well, they'll be able to run the ball this week because the Colts are the worst run defense in the league at that time. Well, it really wasn't about the Colts because it was more about the Bears. And just because the Colts had the worst run defense, well, they hadn't played the Bears run offense yet, or else maybe their record would look a little different. So now you flip that on its head here coming forward. You beat a couple good teams or bad teams, yes, but it's not about the bad teams. It's about the understanding of the offense by Caleb, the execution by the O-line in the run game, Shane Waldron understanding his personnel and what plays to call, Chris Morgan getting on the same page with Shane Waldron. Those are the things that are more important than who they're playing. It's about us, not them. Of course, the margin of error will shrinken as you play better teams, but it's more about being able to execute, knowing what you can execute, and now you give yourself a puncher's chance against anyone in this league. And again, they proved that against the Texans, where they were completely out of sorts as an offense and yet somehow found their way to stay in that game. Let's play that Houston game back over right now and see how things go. Because right now, Caleb's a lot better than he was at that point. And when you go back to that game, when you talk about understanding the offense at the line of scrimmage, Caleb still had a long ways to go in that game taking 7 sacks, those weren't all on the offensive line. Those are also on Caleb. The run game not working the first couple weeks is not just on the offensive line and Shane Waldron. It also has a lot to do with Caleb and him understanding the right checks to hit the right gaps and line up his protection the right way. Identify who the mic is. Identify who the hot is. Those are the nuances of the game that at the end of the day, we all had to be patient with. And it could have taken all year. It could have taken all the way into next year. But the processing and the maturity of Caleb Williams is now showing 6 weeks into the season. He's starting to pick all that up, and things are gradually slowing down for him week to week. Now you get a bye week to look at 6 weeks of film, have an understanding of what you can and can't do with the competition level starting to rise.
Yeah, and I understand that I kind of put a nuclear bomb in Bears Twitter last October when I basically said that there was nothing I had an NFL analyst. I'll still leave him quiet, but I had an NFL analyst who told me there was nothing Justin Fields could do. If the Bears had the number 1 pick, they would take Caleb Williams. End of story, basically. And that pissed off a lot of Bears fans. But that's what at that point, when he said that and what I was seeing, and even talking to guys like Josh Lucas about it, that was about a player in terms of his physical skills. And the physical skills were there. And I think for a lot of Bears fans, it was like, well, Justin Fields has those physical skills and Caleb has them as well. So why don't we keep the guy with the physical skills and then, figure it out from there and get more picks and trade back and all that stuff. So I understood the thought process. But there was one thing that stood out. And actually, I heard it on CHGO when you guys had Brian Baldinger on. And he talked about the whiteboard when he got to sit down with Caleb Williams when he was in high school. And he was talking about how this guy understands the game of football better than NFL quarterbacks when he was like 17. And that stood out to me. And I was like, well, maybe he's being a little hyperbolic or whatever. Let's actually see if that's the case. And now what we're seeing is it really is the case because the growth curve is exponential. Like I actually said in my open to this podcast, I underestimated him. And I was the biggest flag bearer for Caleb that there was because I saw the potential. But I didn't expect the growth curve to be this quick. This type of back-to-back games, I didn't think could even happen until week 11, 12, 13, couple months down the road, but they're happening already. And that's what's exciting to me because like the pre-snap movement, the head swivel, like you're talking about, the grasp of the offense, the progressions, everything we're seeing, it is very reminiscent of Peyton Manning. And I'm not saying he's destined to be a top 5 QB, whatever you think Peyton Manning is of all time. But that's the type of quarterback that he looks like back there, the type of grasp he has. And like you said, it was bad the first couple of weeks. And a lot of that was on Caleb. And the confusion for the offensive line, I don't think they quite knew their roles. And some of that is on Shane. We don't need to get into the scripted plays that they didn't do. But like there were a lot of things not going right. And yes, it was because the rookie curve that Caleb was on. And I brought this up on a podcast before. Quentin Crisco, who does Bears on Tap and has some really great stuff on Twitter.
That's incredible work.
Yeah, he came up with something that I thought was a really good idea when he was trying to compare Jaden Daniels to Caleb. He said Jaden Daniels is acing his NFL 101 course, and he is. Cliff Kingsbury has a simplified offense, and Jaden Daniels is running it beautifully. And this was when it was like week 3, and Caleb was still struggling. He's like, and Caleb's getting a C- in his graduate level advanced NFL course, because that's what the Bears did. That's what Shane Waldron and them did. They took the keys to the offense. They just tossed it at him and said, you're going to figure this out. And he has at a rapid rate. So while it was a mess there, this learning curve, and that's what's exciting to me. Like I said, it looks like Peyton Manning back there. And DJ Moore makes the joke about he's too bossy. But I'll tell you what, and I know Caleb was in the room and it was all in good fun. I'm not mad at DJ for saying it. But he's doing that clearly as a joke, but clearly Caleb Williams is able to go to a 6-7 year veteran and go, no, you're zigging and I need you to zag, basically whatever it is. Caleb has a grasp of the offense. Like we haven't seen this in Chicago. It's just exciting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go back to DJ Moore's comments in minicamp with Caleb Williams. And he said, what's the biggest difference with Caleb Williams as your quarterback? And he said, well, he throws with anticipation. And he said that might take time for us to figure out that chemistry once the game started. It might be fast, might take some time, but that's what he does. Well, it took a little time, but now they're figuring it out. And especially in this Jags game, you saw that anticipation on full display, specifically with that Keenan Allen throw. And absolutely, the back shoulder, that's as good a throw as any quarterback will make in the league from Patrick Mahomes down. That's just a perfect throw, perfect catch by Keenan Allen. I thought my favorite part of the game that I don't really know if anybody brought up. I don't think I had a chance to tweet it out during the game. Service was a little choppy at Tottenham in the stands. But when he scrambled and ran to the middle of the field over the NFL Shield, as he got up, he was pissed off. And it felt like he was mad because he couldn't get the throw off. Like he was mad because he had to run to get all those yards, where he felt, in my opinion, just his mannerisms, it felt like he was frustrated because he wants to do that through passing. And maybe I'm projecting a little there, but it looked that way through his body language. And that's just a guy, and he's shown this time and again how much he wants to stay in the pocket and win from the pocket, and the confidence he has. The offensive line deserves a ton of credit, especially in this game, because he is getting more and more comfortable back there. He's able to kind of slide left, slide right, step out, run out, do his thing. And he's got plenty of time where he, like you said, he's going through the progressions. 1, 2, 3, back to 1. Okay, now I'm going to take off. Well, you don't get to do all that unless your offensive line is playing with some continuity. So they're all starting to figure each other out. And as a Bears fan, that should have you really excited for Caleb Williams. It's only going to mean he's going to get better and better. So as we said before, full tent mode, and you should be, because this guy, he's the real deal, man. We've been waiting our whole lives for this, and it's only going to go up from here. To me, this isn't like, we're not at the moment where Derrick Rose was, like halfway through the season, he won MVP. You knew he was going to win MVP. You're like, he's the best player in the league. We're kind of at the moment, like right before he slams one down on Goran Dragic. And if you were following Derrick through that time, you knew Derrick was the real deal at that point, but the rest of the world wasn't really privy to it yet. And then he throws one down on Goran, and everybody's like, oh, we got something here. So right. I think we're like right at that moment of Caleb's career so far, where like everyone knows he's great, or like in Chicago, does the rest of the world, maybe from the international stage they do, was an early morning game. Well, guess what? 2 weeks from now, it's Caleb versus Jaden on a national spotlight, where you're going to have
Romo. Yep.
Right. You're going to have Romo and Nance calling that game. That could be that moment where that Goran Dragic slam dunk home, where everybody's like, wow, we got ourselves a superstar here.
Yeah, no, I really think you're right there. That is going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game. So one more thing about Caleb, since you brought up your favorite thing about the game, and I agree. No one was really talking about that. The one thing that I haven't really heard anyone talk about, here's my favorite part of the game, because everyone's talking about the Keenan Allen throw, and I get it. It's awesome. It's perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be. And there's not every quarterback in the league can make that throw. But Caleb throws the brutal interception, and it was brutal. And it's rookie, it's growing pains. I don't even still quite understand where the ball was going. You didn't even seem to get a straight answer. He's like, well, I was supposed to throw it past the pylon. Well, it was like 15 yards shy of the pylon. But anyways, regardless of that, like, it's okay. Brutal interception. Bears get the ball back, 3 minutes to go on their own 15. They got 85 yards to go. Now, Greg, you know this team well. If that was Trubisky or Fields, I'm not saying the Bears would have taken a knee, but the goal there would have been 3 points. They would have tried to get to about the 30 to 35 yard line as time was expiring, kick a field goal, get 3 points, and get out. And that's for two things. One, because of that interception, the offense would have been, coaching would have been a little nervous. And two, can Trubisky and Fields shake off that bad of a play and come right back and do something? Caleb Williams, there was no doubt in the Bears coaching staff, and there was no doubt in him to drive the ball down the field 85 yards in 3 minutes, get a touchdown as the Bears going to have, I don't remember, 10, 11 seconds left, whatever it was, basically no time left on the clock. It was the perfect drive to end a half. It's exactly what you do to control the scoring in a game. Jacksonville was getting the ball back. You didn't want to give them an opportunity. You didn't want to come away with 0 points. It was perfect, and it built the momentum right into that second half to have the type of half that they did.
100%. And you also have to acknowledge here off the interception, Roschon Johnson makes a tackle off the pick that I think also is going widely unnoticed because I don't know if the all 22, maybe the all 22 did show, but he had a ton of room to run and could have got way further down the field and flipped that field position for the Jags. Roschon Johnson taking that hits philosophy to example and getting his guy down. Then the Bears defense gets a 3 and out.
Yep.
Kyler Gordon on that 3rd and 5. He's being blocked. They throw this little bubble screen almost where there's 2 blockers ahead of the Jags receiver. And Kyler Gordon is getting essentially blocked in the back and still finds a way to make the tackle as he's being blocked. So that gives the offense the chance to get the ball back. And instead, like you said, instead of playing scared or calling plays scared, they do what good teams do. And they say, well, we're not worried about that interception. We're going to take this and we're going to control the rest of this game. And then they did. And so that's what I mean. Like when you talk about a euphoric experience for Bears fans watching that game, we're just not used to this. And maybe other fan bases would laugh at what we're talking about right now, but we're just not. Yeah, we're just not used to this. And so, like I said, I'm just going to enjoy it. I can't wait for the next game. I love talking about this every day. It beats what we've had to go through here these last 4 years. And, hopefully a lot of fences can get mended with Bears fans going at each other, and we can just start to enjoy this great culture that's being built by Ryan Poles and company.
Yeah, you know what I'm actually seeing a lot in my mentions now are people going, I was a Fields guy. I wanted them to keep Fields and trade the pick. I was wrong. I'm excited. Like it is. You're seeing the fences mend because Caleb is the real deal, and it's just excited to be about. And yeah, you hope Justin succeeds in Pittsburgh. I know it looks like he's headed to the bench this week, but you hope he succeeds not just for the 4th, 6th round pick, but because he was a Chicago Bear and he was a good Chicago Bear. It didn't work out here. It doesn't mean if someone, the team Caleb versus the team Fields, it doesn't mean people are against Fields. It just means that it had different opinions on how to make this team better. And we're here now. And, let's talk about some things other than Caleb Williams in the time we got left. And let me start with the offensive line. You talked about how it's really coming together. It's given Caleb some time to throw. So I'm going to ask you this, and I don't know what Ryan Bates' situation is. He's got it's kind of a chronic condition. We don't know exactly, but he's eligible now. He's going to be able to come back at some point if he's healthy enough to do so. And Coleman Shelton was brutal early on, and obviously that has improved significantly here in the last couple of weeks. He's not going to confuse you for Creed Humphrey, but he's playing better football. Would you tinker with this offensive line at all when they get healthier? Would you insert Ryan Bates at center, or are you comfortable with what this starting 5 is with Nate Davis on the bench as well, obviously?
No, I'm keeping this line exactly how it is with Matt Pryor, Coleman Shelton, Tevin Jenkins, and obviously your tackles. I'm not changing this. With the offensive line, continuity is as important and potentially more important than talent at times. And I'll always point back to the Mark Trestman days when they had one of the best offenses I've ever seen as a Bears fan, any of us have ever seen. With you talk about Martellus Bennett, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, Matt Forte, Jay Cutler. That was high octane. But go look at their offensive line. What was the key to that? All 5 offensive linemen played all 16 games together. And they weren't Pro Bowlers. You had Jermon Bushrod was the best of the bunch. But you had Kyle Long, who was a rookie. You had Jordan Mills, who was a rookie. You had Matt Slauson, just a guy, a guy that you get off the street. And then, solid, but not great. No disrespect to Matt Slauson. And then you had an aging Roberto Garza, who was moved to center at the time. And that was their whole line, so not world beaters, but they played with continuity and chemistry. And that's why that offense, along with the great talent and skill, which the Bears possess now, you just need continuity. And so to me, I'm not messing with the thing unless I have to. Thank God they're done with the Nate Davis experiment. If you want to be critical of anything this coaching staff or the GM got wrong, whether it's over the last couple of years, but let's just dial in on their decision over the summer, where Matt Eberflus was clearly challenging Nate Davis over and over again. If you can't cut him because of the money or the depth that you're considering on your roster, fine. But what I do have a problem with is you starting him week 1. He did not earn that. And so by putting him in there, that was like a poison pill. And it took you 3-4 weeks to overcome that. He is not fighting like the rest of the guys on that O-line were fighting with each other all summer, practicing in the 100-degree heat while he's sitting on the sidelines. So when the season starts, you put him in there, he's not ready to play. He's making mistakes. He's making penalties. And now you've eventually benched him for every guard behind him, whether it's Bill Murray or Matt Pryor or Ryan Bates or whoever. He's now not playing over any of those guys. Well, that took 4 weeks too long. You knew that answer in August. So I'm glad they're finally past that. But that to me is the point of continuity. Nate Davis might have all the talent in the world, but really it's about, can you be there for the guy next to you? Can you develop that chemistry with your teammates?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And, I obviously, Nate, my rabbit ears were up on Nate Davis the day he was signed. And, based on some of the stuff I heard about him and Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. So
yep, we all yelled at you about that.
What's that?
And we all yelled at you when you reported that.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. But that still gets shared, because obviously it's my tweet. I still see it all the time. People are constantly sharing that. Anytime someone says anything positive about Nate Davis, it just gets slammed right there. But anyway, the Nate Davis thing is interesting, and we don't have to discuss it. Just kind of a point of interest. There's going to be 9 offensive linemen on the 53. And if they all get healthy, it's actually an interesting point if Nate Davis actually remains on this team. Because obviously, if you go through the 9, obviously Wright and Braxton Jones are going to be a part of the 9. Obviously, Tevin Jenkins is going to be a part of the 9. Coleman Shelton's not going anywhere. And clearly Matt Pryor's not going to go anywhere. So you got those 5. If they try and put Bill Murray back to the practice squad, he will be after that performance that he had, he will be scooped up by someone else and put on the 53 because nobody has offensive line depth. He's gone. So they have to keep him on the 53. They have to keep Amagaji on the 53. They can't drop him to the practice squad either. So that you're already at 7. Ryan Bates, we know Ryan Poles loves. So that's 8. That leaves you 1 spot left. Now, Matt Pryor is your other swing tackle. I know Amagaji, maybe they'll be comfortable with him playing tackle. Pryor starting at right guard. Do you want Larry Borum active? You got Doug Kramer there. I assume Kramer's going to slide back to the practice squad despite the fullback opportunities there. They'll find Bill Murray or someone to slide in there at fullback if he's not there. But you sit there and go, it's actually going to come down to Larry Borum or Nate Davis. That's it. If they need Larry Borum as a swing, if they feel they need him on the 53 when he gets healthy, Nate Davis is not going to be on this team anymore. They're going to just eat about $5 million, whatever's left, and let him go. So it's actually interesting. I was actually talking to someone on Twitter about that this morning. It's interesting to see what happens with Nate Davis. Now, not everyone gets healthy. Nate's going to stay on this roster, but yeah, it's wild. So let me ask you a couple more things before I let you go. I got to ask you about Cole Kmet, since you know him well with all your work at CHGO. I got to meet Cole at the Super Bowl a couple of years. We're both Barrington guys, so that was fun. I interviewed him for the podcast. He's a good guy. And I was a bit of a critic of Cole early on. He's really coming into his own here. He's coming in as he's one of he's a very solid tight end. If I don't know if you want to go great yet, but he's at least very good. He's performing multiple positions. He can be split out. He's tight. He's blocking better. There's a lot of things going well. Obviously, the long snapper story was awesome in London. But this is a guy, and I brought this up, and I think it really hurt him. And I asked him about it, and he didn't disagree, but he didn't say that didn't hurt him. But, Cole's development was a little slow the first couple of years. And we know tight ends take a while, Greg, anyway, to develop in the NFL. Travis Kelce was year 3 or year 4. It happens all the time. Tight ends don't come out of the gate and are awesome usually. And because of that, Cole Kmet's rookie year was during the pandemic. He was not in the facility. He was doing Zoom calls. I really think that first off season, it was the hot mess with Trubisky and Foles. And everything about his rookie year was bad. Not his fault, just the surroundings. And I think for a tight end, that is arguably, other than quarterback, the hardest position to learn and transition to from college to the NFL. I think that hurt him. And I think it took him a little extra time to basically make up for the lost reps and the lost learning that he had his rookie year. And he's, credit to Ryan Poles. He saw something, when he had that press conference and he said, who's the blue chip guy? And he's like, Cole Kmet, like right away. And you basically knew he was going to be sticking around. He saw something in him that he was going to continue to develop. And he's become like, and we talk about with Caleb Williams that he's got DJ Moore for his whole rookie contract and Rome Odunze for his whole rookie contract. He's got Cole Kmet for 4 of the 5 years of that rookie contract. And that can't be understated or overstated, I should say, how important Cole's going to be for Caleb moving forward.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to talk about, or at least acknowledge, the development process and some of the hurdles he had to overcome. But at this point now, he has to be acknowledged as a top 5 tight end in this league. You can try to pick nits with it. Obviously, there's plenty of people that you can try to parse through on who's worthy of it, but it's also about what you've done on paper and what your production says it is. And he's been one of the most productive tight ends the last couple of years, despite the fact that their offense has had struggles. And now you get him in this year where he's really starting to take the next step in his game. You even have some of his harshest critic, like JT O'Sullivan at QB school.
Right.
He's even, laying down the sword and acknowledging some of the progression he's made and some of the speed that he's starting to add to his game. Overall, all that stuff, I think, speaks for itself. Him running that dude the hell over in London was just a sight for sore eyes and was very cool. Put chills down my back in the moment. Like, I can't believe I just flew all the way over here and watched this guy who I work with every week, just run this dude over for a touchdown. But I think overall, I think that the thing that I've come to the conclusion on is he is, to me, the top leader on this team. You could really pick a lot of different guys that are worthy of this role, but from where he's come from, the example he shows for the rest of this team, the maturity with which he approaches his job on a daily basis, to me, I think he's now earned the title as the top leader on this team. There's a couple other guys that I would have in mind. TJ Edwards is certainly one of those guys. But I look at Cole Kmet as one of the top, if not the top leader. And, one of the biggest things that I have a lot of respect for him is he shows up to work every single day. He gets in. He's played every single game as a Chicago Bear. And he takes a lot of pride in that streak continuing to stay because he wants to be there for his teammates. That's leading by example. That's showing the rest of your teammates, hey, sometimes you're not always going to be 100%, but we need you out there. Obviously, if you're too hurt to the detriment of your team, you're not going to play, but that a lot of times that decision gets taken out of your hands from the doctor's standpoint. But if it is within your grasp of decision, you should want to play because you want to be there for your guys. And Cole has done that time and again. And now he's been through so many pain and heartaches and failures. And now you get to see him, flourishing with a team that has a ton of potential over the next 4 years. He deserves it. We are lucky as Bears fans that that the Bears decided to bring him here. And, I like, for me, and I think a lot of Bears fans, just watching his progression, like, there's a lot to be proud of with Cole Kmet. He represents what a Chicago Bear is. And the long snapping thing, it's funny. He gets special teams player of the week, all that. That's great. But it also kind of embodies the, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help this team win. That's the mentality he carries. And that's the kind of guy he is. And off the field, can't speak more about his persona and his likability and his humbleness. And, he's just a very authentic person and doesn't think he's above anyone. And I mess with him when he comes in here. I always got something crazy to say to him. And he takes it in stride. He thinks, he doesn't look down on any of us here in this studio. And so that part of it, he gains my respect for. But just when you talk about what he does for the Bears, even if he didn't work here, I'd be saying the same things about him because I just think he's a true leader of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, no, he's been phenomenal this year, no doubt about it. So, we've had 35 minutes. We haven't done anything on the defense. I'll just shrug my shoulders and say, oh, well, it's playing great. Jalen Jones steps up, Josh Blackwell getting interceptions. They're showing depth. So we'll move on. I got last one for you. The Bears are sitting at 4-2. Obviously, we're at the bye. Got some more winnable games here. New England and Arizona. Washington. We'll see. If this team is sitting, 6-3 or 7-2, obviously they're going to be in a great position for the playoffs. Are you at a point that if Caleb Williams arrives, but this team goes 9-8 or even 10-7 with how good the NFC North is and misses the playoffs, is it a disappointing season, or are you at a point where as long as this team takes a step forward and Caleb Williams shows that he's the guy, it's enough for you this year if they miss the playoffs?
Well, I mean, I think there will always be a level of disappointment. If you're drawing that map and we fell short of the playoffs, guess what game we're all going to be looking at? The Colts game. Yeah. Yes, the Colts game, right? So, I mean, that's human nature as fans. Like, you're going to get all the way to the end of the year. And I'm sure there's going to be games coming up. If they fall a game short of the playoffs, there will be 3 more games this year that we point at that they could have had that they didn't get. That's football. So there will be a level of disappointment, even if that's making your expectations a touch unreasonably high. But at the end of the day, that's a good thing to have raised expectations. Overall, you'll take it. This team improves. This team wins 9 or 10 games. But because of the landscape of the NFC is the reason and not because of themselves, then you'll take it. It'll be a tough pill to swallow in the moment, but ultimately good medicine. And then you'll look ahead to a season next year that would have a ton of potential. So, this division isn't going anywhere. The Bears aren't going anywhere, but neither are the Packers, Lions, or Vikings. And these quarterbacks aren't going anywhere. So, I know a lot of Bears fans are a little annoyed by that because now the Bears finally get good or appear to be on the right track, and this division is the toughest in football. But at the end of the day,
not even close.
Right. So exactly. But at the end of the day, if Caleb is who we think he is, this defense is what we know it is, then you know what? Whether the division's good or not, if they can rise above this, that means they're of Super Bowl level competence and capability. And so, it's a gauntlet. This division's a gauntlet. The second half of the season's a gauntlet. But if somehow they make their way through, you could see Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson rookie year type movement where, I mean, they ended up winning the Super Bowl in the second year, but in the playoffs that year, they caught fire. They were extremely dangerous. Look at the Packers last year. I know Jordan Love wasn't a rookie because of how many years he's been in the league, but at the same time, the way they carried momentum, they damn near made the Super Bowl. I'm not writing anything off. And I'm keeping my mind open to all possibilities, including falling short of the playoffs, but ultimately all exciting things for the Bears.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun, exciting year. And like you said, Bears fans just need to enjoy the ride. So, Greg, thanks for so much time. That was a lot of fun. Greg Braggs Jr., of course, CHGO Bears, Briggs and Brown. You catch them all over the place there. CHGO Bears After Dark. He does it all. Greg, thanks so much. We'll talk to you later.
Bear down.
All right, there he is, Greg Braggs of CHGO Bears. What a story! I mean, Braggs is a great story, guys. I mean, it's just fun. The guy was calling ESPN, he was calling Waddle and Sylvie, and now he's covering the Bears in London. It's pretty remarkable. Tip of the cap to Greg. I mean, I did it the traditional route. I went to communications. I went to college and did a communications degree. Started off on the overnight board ops and worked my way up. And I'm doing stuff with Odyssey with Mitch Rosen, as Greg said, and working Bears as well. Having a good time. But if you any way you can get here, if you want to do it, Greg basically shows it's never too late to change your career if you really are passionate about doing something. So that was a lot of fun. And you know what else is a lot of fun? Underdog fantasy. That's right. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year making picks on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player's stats. And again, I always pause to say 1,000 times your money. That's obscene. But you can do that on Underdog fantasy. So I love using Underdog fantasy. I like using the app. It's an easy way to go about doing it. A lot of different games. It's not the traditional website, like guys that a lot of you download. It's, you make picks on Underdog. It's straightforward. Signing up is straightforward. It's even easier. Like I said, you got the simple to use mobile app. You got underdogfantasy.com. If you sign up today and you sign up with the promo code CITY, and not just today, you can sign up later, but CITY, CITY, Underdog's going to give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy with the promo code CITY to claim your new customer special or a free pick and your deposit offer. All right, got to get to the important stuff here. You got to be 18 or over, 19 or over in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 and over in Colorado for some games, and 21 and over in Massachusetts and Arizona. You got to be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, this is important. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, it's 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783. Or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, you can call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or you can text HOPE-NY to 467-369. That is Underdog Fantasy, our partners here at Second City Gridiron. We enjoy having them on board. We enjoy playing their games at Underdog Fantasy, so we highly encourage you to go over there and do that. And again, use that promo code CITY. All right, we are wrapping it up with the mailbag. Got a few questions to get to, so let's dive in. All right, we're going to start with @StevenIsTired. The Bears don't seem like they'll be in a position to make a splash addition at the deadline. Good depth, nothing at all in the market that is more of a rental. If they do add some depth at the OL, who are some teams' names that you could see being in play? So, all right, I am going to bring this up. We're going to combine this with Chad Bonk. So I'm going to ask Chad Bonk. I'm going to get Chad Bonk here as well. And we're going to talk about this offensive line. I talked about it a little bit with Braggs. When Bates comes off the IR, he'll be back on the 53-man roster. Do you think Borum will be on the 53 when he comes off IR? Which one or two OL will be displaced by this? So this all comes together. And this is why I highly wonder. I think the Bears may sit completely pat at the deadline and may not do anything. If they do something, I think depth on the defensive line, not the offensive line. And I know that sounds crazy. Now, if Ryan Bates or Larry Borum are more hurt than we expect and they're going to be out a longer period of time, maybe that's something they'll tinker with. Now, second of all, you rarely see offensive linemen traded. In fact, I can't think of pretty much any offensive linemen that have been traded at the deadline, because teams do not like making their offensive line thinner under any circumstances because they don't want to get their quarterbacks hurt. So trading offensive linemen at the deadline almost never happens. If offensive linemen get traded, they get traded in the offseason where teams have a chance to reimagine their offensive line. That's not something you can do. So, I mean, every once in a while, maybe there's a rookie who's been, you drafted in the third round and he's ready to go, and you've got a veteran in the last year of his contract and you can move that rookie up. But even then, usually that veteran is going to get dropped back as the backup because you want that depth. So when we talk about this offensive line, I don't know if they're going to pick up an offensive lineman. The one name I heard that's interesting is Wyatt Teller. He's been banged up for Cleveland, so they've actually been executing without him. Maybe there's something there. I haven't heard anything like that. I don't know if the Bears are going to make a move, even a small move at offensive line, and combining that with Chad, because who are you replacing, guys? And I seriously mean that. And this is what I said before the season. I said I felt better about this offensive line because of its depth. I thought the depth of this offensive line was fantastic. Starting offensive line, not great. But I said if there's injuries, the player replacing them isn't much worse. So, I mean, obviously there's a couple of key guys you need out there. But that's what's great about this offensive line is the depth. So let's look at this, all right? Larry Borum and Ryan Bates. What are they going to do when they come back? And again, I don't know exactly when they're supposed to come back, but let's look at this and say everyone is healthy. All right. Darnell Wright's on the 53. They're going to have 9 offensive linemen on the 53, and then they'll have 8 active on Sunday. That's basically how it works. Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones. They're not going anywhere. Tevin Jenkins isn't going anywhere. Coleman Shelton isn't going anywhere. And at this point, Matt Pryor isn't going anywhere because Matt Pryor is their starting right guard / swing tackle. It's a little bit of a wild position for him, but that's what he is. So that's 5. Karan Amagaji has to stay on the 53. They're not going to put him on the practice squad. Someone will grab him immediately. He's got too many traits. You can't cut him and put him on the practice squad. That's 6. Ryan Bates, if he's healthy, is not going anywhere. Ryan Poles loves him. He wanted him to start. That's 7. We've got 2 spots left for offensive linemen on the 53. We still have Nate Davis. We have Doug Kramer. We have Larry Borum. Like we've got guys here to try and slide in here. The other guy we have is Bill Murray. Bill Murray had a fantastic performance against Carolina. He cannot be cut and put on the practice squad. He will be picked up. There are too many teams that don't lack. He could probably, some teams will give him a shot to start if he got over there and figured out the offense. He had too good of a game. He's going to get picked up. So that makes 8. You've got 1 spot left. I think Doug Kramer can get cut. You don't need a third center. If Ryan Bates and Coleman Shelton are on the active roster, you don't need a third center. So you can cut Doug Kramer, put him back on the back on the practice squad, and I think you're totally safe there. So I think that's one decision. That leaves you 2 guys left, Larry Borum and Nate Davis. Now, you could have played Nate Davis, but you didn't with Bill Murray. Pryor's obviously ahead of him now, and we know Ryan Bates is ahead of him now. So Nate Davis doesn't have a role. Like when you're talking about interior offensive linemen, you're talking about Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, Tevin Jenkins, Matt Pryor, and Bill Murray. You've got 5 interior offensive linemen. Why do you even need Nate Davis other than the fact that he's making $10 million a year? The team clearly isn't interested in him playing unless they have to play him. So that's 5 interior linemen plus your 2 starting tackles plus Amagaji. Borum probably makes more sense to round out the team unless you just want to keep Matt Pryor as your swing. And, then you move in Bill Murray or whoever it might be, Ryan Bates, into the starting lineup and have Pryor bounce out the tackle if one of your tackles gets hurt. So I'm not sure if Nate Davis has a role on this team if everyone is healthy. So if I'm sitting here having to cut Nate Davis just to make room for everyone who's healthy, who else are we replacing on this offensive line? They have too much depth. The Chicago Bears have too much depth at offensive line to make a move. I think that is absolutely wild. All right, let's just get to a couple more because I had a lengthy open and a lengthy conversation with Greg. Let's say, okay, Oak Lightning one, similar question here. If there's one position you would like to bolster in a trade right now, what position would it be? Again, Oak Lightning, I think when you look at this, look at this. I said there's no room on the offensive line, right? Okay. Tight end, no room at tight end. Running back, no room at running back. You could trade Khalil Herbert away for a draft pick because you're clearly not using him. That's a possibility. You're not going to trade Tyson Bagent. That's it on offense. Now move to the defensive side of the ball. You're not trading for safeties. You're not trading for cornerbacks. You're not trading for linebackers. You're not, you've already got a decent edge room now. And that leaves you to defensive tackle. Zach Pickens hasn't played. He's been banged up all year. I'm not a big Pickens guy anyway. So if you wanted to get, because here's what I would say. Javon Dexter's really developed into something this year, but the run game is still for Javon Dexter. That's still coming together. Pass rush is really coming together. We know Billings is a load in the middle. Can you bring in a affordable run stuffer at defensive tackle to put it part of that rotation? Chris Williams was basically given to the Bears for free. That 7-6 pickup grade thing is about as low as you can do in the league these days for a draft, for a trade. So can you pick up another defensive tackle to bolster that interior defensive line a little bit? I don't have a name for you, okay? But that's where I would look. I would look for a run-stuffing defensive tackle that on certain plays you can line up next to Billings and just be big with Sweat and Walker there. And those 4, you're not running on those 4. If you have a good run stuffer next to Billings with DeMarcus Walker and Montez Sweat, you've got a great run-stuffing group. So I would say that's the move to make. And we'll finish with Al. 930293. Are you a bot? Either way, you got a Caleb Williams question, so we're going to ask you, will Williams' growth translate to stiffer competition? I talked about this in the open. I talked about this with Braggs. Yes, because of what he's doing. This isn't bum-slaying Mitch Trubisky, and I'm not knocking Mitch. Mitch could torch man coverage, and that's why he owned the Lions, because Matt Patricia insisted on going. I don't understand Matt Patricia. I mean, that's why he's not coaching anywhere, because he stinks. But Matt Patricia insisted on sticking with his man defense, and Mitch could torch a man defense, because in that, you're more just kind of saying, all right, who's open, and throw them the football. Mitch could do that. Mitch got in trouble with zones and things like that. And Caleb is able to read that. What about Justin Fields? Couldn't throw with anticipation. Caleb is able to do that. So what you're seeing is a quarterback with a specific set of skills that don't translate to just beating bad teams. It translates to him having the ability to throw Keenan Allen open, to make the right reads at the line of scrimmage and take what the defense is giving him. Audible out of plays that are going to be dead on arrival, like the speed option against the Colts at the goal line. He can now audible out of those and do little plays that are going to work. So because Caleb Williams appears to be grasping the offense at a higher level than the previous quarterbacks did, yes, I think that translates to him succeeding against stiffer competition. Is he going to throw for 4 touchdowns against, the Minnesota Vikings? No. But is he going to be able to execute some scoring drives? I think absolutely yes. Now, that's also going to depend on the receivers are going to be able to find gaps to get open. Caleb will be able to find them. It's going to depend on the offensive line sticking together and playing well. You got to give Caleb 3 seconds, right? You got to give him 2.5 seconds. He's getting the ball out and pretty quickly most of the time, but you've got to give him an opportunity that pocket isn't collapsing at 1.5 seconds. So as long as the offensive line is decent, they don't need to be incredible, but they do need to be decent. As long as they do that, then yes, I would say, in fact, Caleb Williams' skill set will translate against stiffer competition. All right, that's going to do it for Bears Banter. We will be back again next week. I think the podcast is probably going to be out late Wednesday night instead of early Wednesday morning to accommodate a guest. I've got to talk to him when he gets back from his vacation. If you follow Chicago media, you probably know then who the guest is next week. We'll talk to you then. Big game coming up, the Rookie Bowl, Daniels and Williams. Bear down, everybody. Adios.